The Atrium Guild was hailed as the greatest merchant guild in the Central Plains. Tonight that place has been reduced to ruins. This isn't just a scuffle between merchant guilds. Gold and silver scattered among the fallen guards. But this is the work of the demonic sect. He couldn't help but exclaim, "You truly have a strong sense of chivalry." The demonic sect members all wore black garments covering their bodies. The leader looked regretful. "But after all, you are only a merchant. Not a martial artist and not an ordinary merchant, but a shop chief." He glanced down at the wooden box at his feet. "Why don't you hand over the key and make it easier on yourself?" Young breathed with difficulty. "Do I look like a fool who would fall for your cheap flattery? I know exactly what you're thinking." The old man scoffed firmly. "It's you foolish demonic sect lot who are the idiots. Don't you realize that without the key you can't kill me?" Young taunted triumphantly. "If you're so confident, why not use your peak skill to cut me open and see? Of course, if you do, I won't be responsible for what you find inside me." He pulled up his hood. "I'll ask you again." The leader used his eye technique on him. "Where is the key?" Young was struck by a direct psychological attack. He couldn't believe it. "What? My mouth is moving on its own." Young had spoken from under the seat of the guildmaster of the merchant guild. They quickly moved. Very soon someone reported, "We found it." He angrily glared as they unlocked it. To control another's body like that, they truly were the demonic sect. But it was still too early for me to give up everything. Young continued to loudly provoke, "You have the key, so why are you just standing there and not opening it?" The demonic sect also realized that this key required a special method to use. They angrily threw the box down. He mocked them, "Keep fumbling around with it then. Have you given up?" He ordered again. "Open it. Young is being controlled right now." "Fine." He trembled, trying to resist. "Damn the Muram Alliance leader." Young inserted the key. They said it was a special mechanism that needed circulating chi so it would be safe. But against those who used dark arts like the demonic sect, it was completely useless. He had no idea what exactly this thing was that had been given to him. A brilliant pill revealed itself. "What on earth is this? At least I have to see what it looks like." Young couldn't believe it. "A medicinal pill? They burned down my entire guild just to find this, and it's only a pill." At that moment, a sword was at his throat. He granted his final favor. "If you have any last words, I'll listen." He had no intention of dying here. "How much money would it take for you to spare me?" But the deal failed. "Our sect's followers are not greedy for wealth. Have you finished speaking?" Young said again, "Thank you for helping me make up my mind." He was shocked. The pill had been clenched between his teeth. Was I the only one who had to suffer and die here? Young decided to destroy it. "Favor or grudge, I will repay it all. That is my principle." The leader roared and furious slashed off his head. He kept hurling curses. Until the very last moment, Young still wore a smug smile. Suddenly the space shifted to a peaceful Taoist hall. Young frantically checked his neck. "Is my neck still intact?" He stared in disbelief and checked again. "What is this head? I'm sure my neck was just..." When someone suddenly stepped forward, Young jolted and looked up. Changhyun frowned with displeasure. How can someone who has entered the Tao be so lazy? He froze and realized, wait, this person is. Young couldn't believe it. Changhyun, the elder of Wudang. He impatiently smacked him on the head with a staff. "Yes, it's me, you brat." Changhyun ordered sternly, "Snap out of it and stand up at once." Young's mind was still in the clouds. What on earth is going on? He recalled clearly that it had been over 30 years since he was an outer disciple of Wudang. Young couldn't understand. "I was expelled not long after, but I still remember Changhyun as my master. So why is he standing before me looking exactly as he did back then?" He glanced discreetly to the left. "Besides, even if I accept everything, but..." Young blinked. "What on earth is this thing?" He stared. It looked like an ordinary bamboo token. Changhyun lost patience. "Don't just sit there, go outside now." Young realized that this token was visible only to him. He studied it carefully. "In that case, this cover token might be the only clue to what I've been through and am experiencing. Better read it through once more." The token listed sword bone talent, sword rank 8, minimum price 10 taels of silver. Young doubted the talent, and there were ranks and prices. Could I really buy these things with money? There were many options for void bone. Rank 7, price 300 taels of silver. He couldn't help but wonder why the prices were like this. 3 taels could buy about 90 hectares of land. There was also Heavenly Eye level 2, price locked. Young grew more shocked the more he read. Heavenly Eye was one of the divine powers once possessed by the Buddha Martial King, body level 3, price locked. He felt confused. The prices and items were all insane. Finally, he found a reasonable price. Lightness skill level 9, cost 3 coins as a new user special. Young spoke up, "Master, may I ask you something?" Changhyun waited. "What is it now?" He asked very innocently, "Could you lend your disciple 3 coins? He was so angry he burst out laughing. Young got another beating. One fine morning in the main hall, he had a blade of grass in his mouth. Young hid in a corner. Days passed since then, and he decided to accept that he had truly traveled 30 years back in time. He wondered whether that pill was called the Divine Demon Pill. Young marveled that to send someone 30 years into the past, it truly possessed a power worthy of its name. He still couldn't understand, but what he couldn't explain was why the Muram Alliance leader handed something like that to me in the first place. Young rubbed his chin. Wait, if I think simply, in the future I just need not accept that Divine Demon Pill, right? He concluded that without that pill, the damned demonic sect would have no reason to attack him. I won't be dragged into the Jianghu anymore. Young saw a life of wealth before him, and I even have knowledge of the future. I could become an even greater merchant than before. He was discovered, so you're lazy here after all. He asked, aren't you going to practice martial arts? Jian Asu smiled and reminded him, there's the outer disciple assessment today, remember. Young pondered, if I recall correctly, this guy is. I still recognized him, Jian Asu, son of the family that runs Wuhan Money Shop. Young still had no intention of getting up. We would never become true disciples of the sect no matter how well we did. Besides, just mouthing the movements in front of people, does that look like practicing martial arts? Someone was boasting, this is Taiji Fist. Young insisted that if that were Taiji Fist, even the cheap 3-stream street boxing would count as advanced martial arts. Jian Asu sat down near him and asked, by the way, what are those reed flutes? Young didn't bother hiding it. I'm planning to sell these to the sect's disciples. He knew it all too well. Honestly, we're here mostly to socialize rather than train, but they're young and true cultivators. Young had a good grasp of customers, especially those registered today. They're all kids who only learned martial arts from childhood. They'll go crazy for trinkets like reed flutes and try to buy them. He laughed with delight. You really have a knack for business. He mused, as I recall, this guy will safely become the owner of Wuhan Money Shop in the future. Young considered carefully, last life I was expelled within a month, so we were never close. He played the flute surprisingly well. There's no harm in flattering him. Jian Asu decided with interest, you're handy, I'll buy one from you for 3 coins. He cheerfully left, I'm off, sell a lot while I'm gone. Young smiled opportunistically. All right, I've earned a little money now. He studied again how to use this cover token. If something like the Divine Demon Pill exists, this should be usable too. Young thought to himself, purchase lightness skill, use it. The gold coins vanished, a huge cover token appeared, the purchase of lightness skill was completed, and he jumped in surprise. What a shock. Young checked, so simply wanting to buy was enough to complete the transaction. However, I didn't feel any major difference yet. Suddenly, there were miserable cries nearby. The 2 disciples from earlier had run into trouble. Did they really call those lazy punches Taiji Fist? Jeong bristled with vigor. Maybe I should break both your arms. He angrily stepped forward. HMPH, you brats. That idiot dared to challenge. Fine, go ahead and try to break them. The boy who dodged had already appeared behind the opponents. He winced in pain. How did you get here so fast? Jeong knitted his brows. Do you really think an ordinary outer disciple can defeat a true disciple? Maybe I should break this arm of yours right now, hem. Just then, it was the right moment for Young to step onto the platform. He cautiously began, excuse me. Young bowed respectfully. I am an outer disciple named Mook Young. He smiled amiably and offered, could you please release my friend first so we can have a proper talk? Jeong remained stubborn. You came all the way here just to say that. I can still talk comfortably after I break his arm. Young stepped closer and, to be honest, I don't really care what you do to him. He leaned down to the boy's eye level. It's just. Young seized the perfect opportunity. I happen to have a very exquisite product on me. Would you like to take a look before deciding? On a very fine morning, Jinghua suddenly froze. He turned his back. Who is that person? Jinghua looked down from the high mountain. The whistling of the flute echoed through the main hall. Young played and thought, it's really hard to play as well as Jian Asu. He had seen those bright, eager eyes. Surely this should be enough, right? Jeong couldn't resist the temptation. I am Jeong, a true disciple. May we try blowing a tune? Young began the deal. Come on, you sensible people. Using someone else's goods requires fair exchange, right? Was he convinced? I guess so, if that's the case. I haven't finished introducing the product yet, but the flute she used for the demonstration is completely different. Young spun his seller's spiel, normally 5 coins, but since it's a sample, I'll sell it cheap. Kids are easy to lead. Oh my. He sold it to Jian Asu at the exact price, only 3 coins. All their faces instantly fell. Young was a bit surprised. Why such an enthusiastic reaction? This wasn't what I expected. He continued chattering, never mind, I'm in a good mood. If you buy a set of 5, I'll throw in a special bonus. Myung-jeong awkwardly spoke up about that. The boy flusteredly explained, "We usually don't carry money with us." The three poor kids pleaded, "Could you let us buy on credit? Or if not, take other items in exchange. We don't even have 3 coins and we don't even know how to play the flute. If that doesn't work then." Young sighed in exasperation. For kids stuck on the mountain all day practicing swordplay, it's natural they have no money. He pondered, and honestly, I didn't mean to take their pocket money. The real goal is to build some rapport with the true disciples, the ones who will become masters in the future. Young decided a little teasing about money was enough. He declared firmly, "I'll give you one for free." The boy's eyes lit up really. Young respectfully handed over the flute. Being accepted by the true disciples of the martial sect was an honor for him. Myung-jeong put on a show. "At least you know the proper courtesy of respecting your elders." The boy reached out, "Then I gladly accept." I remember clearly that among them, this boy Myung-jeong became a renowned master of wudang in the previous life. Young had made an investment, barring any unforeseen events. In this life he would grow into that same grandmaster so that such a figure would know my face. This was surely a profitable bargain. Suddenly someone drew a sword. He precisely cut the flute in Young's hand in two. Chunghwa sternly demanded, "And who are you?" He was extremely annoyed. "Who are you to use cheap goods to lure the disciples of my sect?" He ran into his first obstacle. It seemed this old man was the master of those true disciples. Young grumbled inwardly. Honestly, those martial folks always rely on their strength, using force to intimidate others. He glanced down at the pathetic looks of the kids. Even the children standing nearby were scared for no reason. Young clicked his tongue in dislike. Damn it. He straightened and challenged, "Is enjoying a bit of music such a grave crime?" Chunghwa frowned. "What did you just say?" Young raised his voice. "The ancients sought momentum, and when it comes you speak all at once. What stirs you is your gaze, the hand that draws the bowstring, and the heart that wonders if the arrow will hit the mark." Young boldly declared that the target had always been at the same distance. He demanded loudly, "This only brings them joy. What's so worth making a fuss about?" The old man was silent for a long moment. Chunghwa seemed not easy to persuade, truly rude. He radiated surging pressure. Chunghwa's gaze was cold as ice. "Did you not realize those words were an insult to wudang's rules?" Young tried to stand firm. "Hey, using inner power like that is a bit unfair. After all, it's only a threat to me." He trembled as he raised his hand. No matter how overbearing wudang might be, they wouldn't kill someone over such a trivial matter. Young clasped his hands. "If that's the case," he boldly declared, "if the wind blows strong, how can a tree stand in its way?" Young thought, "I can only move forward." He continued to persuade. All they could do was pray they wouldn't be broken. Chunghwa couldn't help but laugh. "Kid, you do have some backbone. Surprisingly, you can calmly speak your mind even when I press you with my aura." Young kept a calm face, though he thought, "Press with aura? No wonder my organs felt like they were turning inside out." He fumbled for his purse. "All right, the flute sounds interesting. Consider it an amusing diversion. I'll buy them all. How much in total?" He confidently priced them at 15 pieces, so that's 75 coins. Chunghwa asked, "Didn't you say a 5-piece set gets a special discount?" Young cheerfully replied, "The special discount only applies to youths." He flashed a flattering smile. Surely a venerable master of wudang wouldn't insist on paying the price meant for children, would you? Chunghwa instructed, "Take it. This is a 100-coin note from Wuhan Money Shop. Keep the change as compensation for intentionally frightening you." Young was very pleased. Turns out his life was worth 25 coins when tested. Not bad. He curiously asked, remembering to ask, "What's your name?" Young, "I am Mook Young." Young guilelessly asked, "May I ask your sect name, Elder?" Chunghwa had already guessed. "You really don't know who I am?" He happily replied, "I am Chunghwa." Young remembered clearly the Vo C letter 1EF1C Divine Sword, Chunghwa, one of wudang's current 5 supreme masters and in the future one of the 8 great masters, a master among masters. Cold sweat broke out on Young. That terrifying figure was him. He went pale. It was the utmost honor to witness the senior Vo C letter 1EF1C Divine Sword. Young thought to himself that if he'd known earlier, he would never have spoken so arrogantly. Chunghwa teasingly said, "Now do you understand whom you just argued with?" He dared not look up. "Yes, senior." Atreung held his ground. Just as Wuding has its own way, merchants have their own rules. The old man chuckled with amusement. Impudent brat. Chenghua pleased led his disciples away. You really won't concede even a bit, will you? Only after he was out of sight did Atreung dare to breathe a sigh of relief. Someone approached and spoke up. You dared raise your voice before the Vo C letter 1EF1C divine sword. Well done, I admit that point. Atreung frowned. He thought he'd just overcome a difficulty, yet here this guy appeared. The man introduced himself. I am Sagang Hyun of the Ascending Thunder sect. Atreung remembered clearly that this man was the biggest troublemaker among the secular disciples before his rebirth. Sagang Hyun smiled slyly. Let's be friendly, shall we? Atreung felt no goodwill toward him. This man was mainly responsible for his expulsion from Wuding in his previous life. Sagang Hyun rubbed his round chin. You must be Mook Atreung, right? He feigned concern. I heard the son of the wealthiest merchant in the region became a secular disciple of Wuding, so I'm guessing that's you. Atreung dismissed the connection. That's not true, I come from an ordinary farming family. But Sagang Hyun didn't buy it. With your physique, how could you possibly survive in this harsh world? He stretched out his hand toward him. Well, I suppose I can accept it. How about we be friends? Atreung stared. He had grasped that hand in his previous life. He had kowtowed to serve Sagang Hyun back then, for he had neither talent nor backing. He mistook it for his only chance at changing his fate. Atreung could not forget, at least not until the incident occurred. Changhyun angrily produced a large bundle. These items were found in the rooms of the secular disciples. He threw them out. Among them were several notebooks. The disciples began whispering among themselves. With a glance, Atreung recognized those as the books Sagang Hyun often read. He smirked inwardly. He never lent them to me, so serves him right. Changhyun continued, do you know whose room these were found in? He pointed directly at Atreung. In your room. Atreung was stunned to be singled out. What, me? Changhyun berated him harshly. How dare you bring such lewd, depraved items up to the sacred Wuding mountain? Atreung flustered. No, these aren't mine. The elder wouldn't hear it. He would accept no excuses. And Changhyun immediately pronounced his decision. From today, you are expelled from the sect. Atreung clenched his fists in bitter resentment. He had been monopolized by that man and then blamed for everything. He struck Sagang Hyun's wrist hard. Back then, he was struggling to afford each meal. Revenge was out of the question. Atreung glared and snarled, you bastard. He dared to provoke him. You learn some claw-style moves and think you're the king of the world. Atreung spoke every thought. Being the son of the master of that shabby sect makes you nobility. A nobody like you acting superior makes me sick to my stomach. He sneered and pointed at him. Grow up, you meddlesome brat. Sagang Hyun stepped forward, narrowing his eyes in fury. I thought you were all talk. I didn't expect you to be a raving lunatic with no limits. Atreung taunted in a shrill tone. At this rate, someone won't be able to hold back and will throw a punch. You want to risk a brawl and get us both kicked out of the sect. Sagang Hyun was about to lose his temper but had to weigh his options. His eyes bloodshot with anger. I'll be watching you closely. Atreung thought to himself, too bad, I wouldn't mind starting a fight and being expelled right here. He sighed wearily. In my previous life, everything happened about a month later. Anyway, to use knowledge from my former life, I must leave this place. Atreung walked while considering that maybe he should stage something during the secular disciples' assessment. Jian Asu came over to talk. Mook Atreung. He couldn't understand. What's wrong with you? What if you have to face Sagang Hyun in the assessment matches? Atreung paid him no mind. The pairings are random anyway, right? We'll deal with it then. Jian Asu was speechless. You're more optimistic than I thought. Atreung sank into memory. This isn't optimism, it's because I already know who my opponent is. From memories of my past life, my opponent was one of Sagang Hyun's lackeys. He remembered it clearly, and of course, with mediocre talent and strength, I was utterly crushed. If nothing changes, the same script will play out again. Atreung clenched something in his hand, assuming nothing changed. The assessment would be held that very night. The disciples were doing their best to showcase their skills. Changhyun sighed in exasperation, and Chenghua had also shown up. It seemed things had begun. He was surprised. Chenghua, junior brother, what brings you here? He cheerfully replied, Master, I thought I should come see the secular disciples' assessment in advance. Changhyun sighed tiredly, indeed, but there's no disciple particularly worth nodding. Chenghua confirmed, the matchups are chosen randomly, right? He said that's true, but I'm tweaking a few spots. He suddenly noticed a few things. Chenghua's gaze paused on Atreung, and he began to scheme a little. Chenghua suggested, Senior brother, would you mind if I change the next match a bit? Changhyun was slightly surprised. He didn't object. Do as you like, junior brother. The next match began at once and he announced the next pairing. He called his name first Mook Hwyoung. Hwyoung, say goodbye to Jeon Asu who's still fluttering about with his flute. I'll be right back. Jinghua declared, and your opponent is. So there has been a change from the previous life. Sagang Hyan. Stunned spun back, what Sagang Hyan, why the sudden change? Seeing that look, Hwyoung understood. Senior Jinghua has switched the brackets. Chung Hyun loudly announced, if both are ready, the duel will begin. Sagang Hyan gritted his teeth with a forced laugh. Looks like my opportunity has come sooner than expected. He lunged forward, you little brat of a namesake. Sagang Hyan retaliated aggressively. I told you I'd be watching you, didn't I? Hwyoung hurriedly stepped back to keep his distance. This wasn't part of my plan. He tightened the thing in his hand. Oh well, I was going to throw a move at his face anyway. Hwyoung struck him square on the nose, the counter. Everyone was stunned. Sagang Hyan squeezed his eyes shut after the unexpected blow. Chung Hyun disapproved of this display, and Jeon Asu could only force a smile. And Hwyoung grinned smugly. He flew into a rage and threw wild punches. Hwyoung seized the momentum and charged, the follow-up strike being a heavy punch to Sagang Hyan's chin with the Samjung fist. Hwyoung pressed the attack relentlessly. One punch wasn't enough, so he gave another. Suddenly he faltered, but his body felt a little off. Sagang Hyan had grabbed Hwyoung and threw him down face first. Hwyoung painfully forced himself up. I got carried away, hit him twice without thinking. Sagang Hyan finally managed to open his eyes, but he grew even angrier. You brat, I'll kill you for sure. Hwyoung was truly in a bind now. What should he do with this guy? Hwyoung slammed a hard punch into his opponent's face, then withdrew his hand and sneered, look at that. Chung Hyun clenched his fists in anger. How could he stoop to such a despicable act? No different from demonic sect hooligans. A hand suddenly landed on his shoulder, and Chung Hyun turned to look at Jinghua. He smiled and said, just watch a bit longer. Hwyoung stepped back a little, a bit worried. It seemed Sagang Hyan was plotting something. Sagang Hyan, furious, raised his leg high. He slammed his foot down hard, but Hwyoung quickly dodged. The dust slowly cleared, revealing a large crack in the floor. Hwyoung sensed something and glanced over. The man had avoided Sagang Hyan's strike. Hwyoung slid swiftly to the back of him. He swung his arm and struck the back of Sagang Hyan's head hard. Hwyoung thought to himself, this feeling is really strange. The Samjung fist technique I only learned superficially is now flowing out naturally like this. The only difference from my previous life is the level 9 lightness skill. Cost 3 coins, new player discount. I bought the lightness skill. He turned and repeatedly attacked toward him to retaliate. Hwyoung dodged while pondering, could that tiny thing alone change my strength this much? He suddenly launched an uppercut from beneath Sagang Hyan's chin. He was struck before he could block and fell unconscious on the spot. Hwyoung thought incredulously to himself, this is utterly absurd. It turns out that with silver I can become powerful so easily. I don't have time to waste here any longer. I must leave and start making money immediately. Sagang Hyan suddenly called out, making him freeze. You little brat over there. He wiped the wound at the corner of his mouth. I'll kill you, mark my words. Hwyoung was slightly stunned at the sight. His aura had changed. Could he be planning to use internal energy? Sagang Hyan said nothing more and took a deep breath. Then he swung and punched continuously while saying, you're as good as dead. Hwyoung quickly dodged and thought to himself, damn, so the gap made by internal energy is that big? His speed and strength have both skyrocketed. Hwyoung's legs trembled as he struggled to stay steady. I have no way back now. As he was thinking, a strike snapped him back. So in the end, I still can't beat this guy. Sagang Hyan gritted his teeth and clenched his fist tighter. His fist swung ever closer. Without internal energy, relying only on the Samjung fist footwork will never be enough. Suddenly, a voice called out, stopping them both. That's enough. Jinghua retracted Ching's sword and stood to attention. His expression darkened as he said, using internal energy against a novice. Even the ascending thunder sect's hunting dogs wouldn't stoop that low, would they? Sagang Hyan flustered and tried to explain, though he was the one who had thrown the sandbag first. Jinghua turned to look at Hwyoung. That remark made sense. A proper Wudang disciple, resorting to the tricks of lowly ruffians. You will receive punishment fitting your actions, just wait and see. Hwyoung bowed his head slightly and replied, disciple will obey. He turned and walked away, not forgetting to instruct. Thus, the assessment for the secular disciples is concluded. Hwyoung chuckled inwardly with excitement. Good, I've completed all today's goals. I landed a blow on Sagang Hyan and created an excuse to be expelled from Wudang. Everything went exactly as planned. He rejoiced inwardly. Once kicked out of here, I'll start planning business ideas for the next step. Jinghua walked slowly across the main courtyard. Chung Hyun suddenly approached and asked, are you all right, brother? He lowered his head and sighed. What's there to be not all right about? Hearing that, he angrily declared, first, that child called Mook Hwyoung must be expelled immediately. Saging Hyan lost his temper and used internal energy, but that brat had deliberately prepared a sandbag beforehand. His heart is rotten to the bone. He fell silent, pondering something without saying more. Changhyun opened his eyes and continued, "But you also witnessed that boy's body technique, didn't you? You said we only taught him the Samchung fist footwork a few days ago, right? And he hasn't practiced any other martial arts, yet his moves were so flawless, which proves he possesses extraordinary martial talent. Am I right?" Changhyun added, "Even so, Wudang's rules are extremely strict. He must still be punished." He stroked his chin and continued, "Indeed, that's so." He hesitated slightly as he called, "Senior Chunghua." He smiled coldly and wondered, what form of punishment should we give him? In the morning, Changhyun announced loudly, "The secular disciple Hwieung will be temporarily assigned to serve at the scripture pavilion of our sect. Consider it the deep-minded leniency of senior brother Chunghua and be grateful." "Senior brother, why not just expel him outright?" Hwieung blinked, his face full of confusion. "So they're not kicking me out. In my previous life, they tossed me out over a few dirty books immediately. Why is this time so different? This is basically throwing a wrench into my plan." Jian Asu came over and nudged his shoulder. "Isn't that a good thing? At least you won't be expelled. And from the look of it, you seem to have some talent. Why not work harder to become a true disciple?" Hwieung glanced away and replied, "Talent my foot, I can say for certain. I have not an ounce of martial talent. After building a merchant career in my last life, I tried learning martial arts, but I was utterly incapable of controlling my body, to the point I never completed a single technique. So yesterday's miracle was entirely thanks to this. Price 10 taels of silver, heavenly bone locked at level 5. Price 10 taels of silver, heavenly eye locked at level 2, lightness skill level 9, price 3 coins, new player discount. Sword bone minimum level 8, price 10 taels, body technique bone minimum level 9, price 10 taels. I'll name this cover card the Martial Talent Trading Shop." He sighed and continued, "Well, whatever. I'm heading to the scripture pavilion now." He stood waving to Hwieung. "All right, take care." He walked off sighing to himself. It seemed his quick plan to get expelled had failed. If I remember correctly, the scripture pavilion manages Wudang's finances. At this point, I might as well try to skim whatever profit remains. I thought that simply, but perhaps I underestimated the matter. Chunghua stood before him smiling brightly. Hwieung sank to his knees and asked, "So Master Chunghua is actually the chief elder in charge of the scripture pavilion?" He smiled and explained clearly, "I'm actually from the Immortal Arts Hall, but a close senior brother works here, so I come by. More importantly, you will take on the role of errand runner here." Hwieung was stunned, an errand runner. Chunghua continued, "The scripture pavilion must exchange financial documents with all other halls in the sect. You will deliver those documents to each hall." He trembled with worry and replied, "The farthest place takes 2 watches to reach. If someone like me, who can't even do lightness skill properly, handles this, won't Wudang grind to a halt?" Chunghua quickly reassured him, "Don't worry too much, you're just an extra pair of hands. Meeting like this is fate. Today I'll take you on a tour of Wudang Mountain, come with me." Seeing Hwieung frozen, he paused, then called his full name in a low voice. Hwieung was frightened but dared not speak. "I'm busted." At night the space was quiet except for the whistling wind. Hwieung packed his luggage, thinking inwardly that there are over 10 halls on Wudang Mountain, some located in insane spots that require climbing sheer cliffs to reach. As for me, I absolutely have no intention of ending this precious second life by falling to a gruesome death from a misstep. He sneaked away on tiptoe. What on earth should I do now? Hwieung quietly leapt down onto the tiled terrace. He gathered his strength and dashed off as fast as he could. Fleeing into the night was his only option. Outside the gate, moonlight poured down onto the ground. Hwieung raised a hand to rub his chin in worry. He looked at the sight before him and wondered, "I just stepped out of my room, why is it so dark? I could have bought a little from the Martial Talent Trading Shop, Dark Adaptation level 9, price 80 coins. Damn it, but it doesn't accept IOUs anymore." Hwieung took a torch and lit it. At this point, he had no choice. He lifted the torch high with confidence. "Looks like I just have to push forward. I might be spotted right away with a torch in hand, but I'm not letting this second life end with a stupid fall in the dark. Besides, Wudang Mountain is vast. Surely they can't catch me instantly, right?" No sooner had Hwieung peered out than he met someone else's gaze. 2 people stood before him staring. He'd been discovered in an instant. A sword was quickly pressed to his throat. "Who dares loiter here?" Hwieung raised both hands in surrender. "I'm merely a humble herb gatherer. I was busy collecting herbs and dozed off for a moment. When I woke up, it was pitch black." The man relaxed his guard. "It's the first time I've seen an herb gatherer fall asleep while working." Young quickly produced his haul and handed it over. See for yourself. Look at the herbs I've gathered. The two men looked at them and then at each other, asking, You call this herbs, how should I know? Young clutched his pack and stepped back. I had a hunch this might happen, so I yanked a few random weeds to bring along. How could they tell what's genuine? And if he's not an herb gatherer, what then? Even if he's not, we can't do anything. The men let it slide. We'll let you off this time. Be careful not to slip and fall down the mountain. Much obliged. He grabbed the torch and dashed off. I'm clear, made it past the patrols. Getting down the mountain should be quick now. Young's gaze fixed on the gate ahead. Once I get past there, he said, licking his lips excitedly, no one will be able to stop me. Suddenly, a voice made Young freeze. Mook Young, where are you rushing off to? He slowly turned his head. There that damned voice was again. Jinggua appeared behind him with a kindly smile. Did you really think with that dark scowl and gruff tone, I wouldn't notice you sneaking out of the sect? Seeing him, Young couldn't help thinking, of all people it's you, Jinggua. A moment later, he sat down to talk with him. How could you possibly have known? Jinggua turned and explained, you underestimate a martial artist's eyesight. A person's face holds the 7 emotions and 6 desires. The involuntary movements of muscles never lie. Young hesitated and asked, what do you intend to do with me? Jinggua didn't answer immediately but asked in return, before I answer that, Beggar Priest wants to ask you something. Even in the prosperous Central Plains, countless people yearn to join Wudang. So why would you want to leave such a renowned sect? He turned his face away and replied, if I can't pass that exam, all my efforts are for nothing. To become an official secular disciple, I have to defeat one of the top 3 true disciples in the duel, right? No one understands me better than I do. Young lowered his head and said in a quiet voice, I don't have enough talent to go that far. Jinggua smiled and asked, you haven't really tried, have you? Young quickly looked away, muttering that he was hopeless. Jinggua stepped closer and said, I've seen through your lie. Your talent is actually quite outstanding, be honest with me. I won't breathe a word of what I hear tonight to anyone. Young, hearing this, asked, what do you want to know? Jinggua immediately spoke his thought, why are you so determined to leave Wudang? Young helplessly covered his face. I can't tell you that all this talent came from the martial talent trading shop's treasure. He thought for a moment, then nodded. Then I'll be honest. Young slapped his chest and declared loudly, this Wudang sect is too small to contain someone like me. The atmosphere instantly fell silent. He watched Jinggua silently, a little afraid inside. Fine, I'll just say it bluntly. Seeing Jinggua grow increasingly agitated, Young worriedly asked if he was all right. Jinggua wiped a tear from his eye. I see, I've fully grasped the meaning of your words. Was he really surprised by that? Young perked up excitedly and rushed to ask, so you'll let me go just like that? The answer immediately dropped him from the sky into an abyss. No. You're a disciple of Wudang. How could I hear such words and remain unmoved? Jinggua drew his sword and smiled. I'll show you the true intent of Wudang. The sword, pulled from its scabbard, immediately displayed its authority. Young raised his hand to shield himself. Has the wind changed direction? He sensed something strange and thought, no, this is. Young looked down at the sword glowing in Jinggua's hand. Concentric circles rapidly appeared and then spread outward. Jinggua gripped it firmly and instructed him, watch me closely. He quickly spread his legs, the scrape of his shoes sounding against the tiles. Jinggua immediately performed moves that were both graceful and powerful. Young couldn't help but exclaim, how beautiful. Gentle like a flowing river, fierce as if cutting through a treacherous gorge, and endlessly sublime like the heart of the sea. This was the true esoteric sword technique of Wudang, the Taiji sword. He stopped, the sword pointed straight ahead. An image of yin and yang immediately appeared beneath their feet. Young stood stunned, not yet recovered. Jinggua's eyes sharpened as he asked, do you understand a bit now? Young was dumbfounded and couldn't form a thought. Jinggua continued, what do you think? He grew more and more confused. What on earth should he do? Jinggua offered a gentle smile and softly asked, now do you comprehend? Young's eyes opened in astonishment, thinking to himself. Finally, he confusingly asked back, what do you mean, senior? Inside Young's mind, turmoil grew. What should I do? Jinggua leisurely sheathed his sword and explained, aren't you the one who doubts Wudang's ability? Jinggua channeled energy into his hand toward Young's torch. That's why just now I revealed a glimpse of the sect's true depth. In no time, the flame was reignited and flared fiercely. He politely affirmed his intent. I only mean that there is no one we cannot train into a master. Hearing this, Young slapped his head in helplessness. Why do martial folk always think only of brute strength? He could only silently object to Jinggua. Are you saying a great merchant must become a monk? That's like shoving stones into a boy's mouth. Absolutely impossible. Since persuading him with words proved impossible, Young resorted to another tactic. I apologize for my earlier words, but regardless, he said plainly without hesitation, I absolutely cannot stay at Wudang. Faced with this stubbornness, Qinghua had to inquire, why? Huiyang frowned and candidly admitted everything. Because I don't want to. Try to stop me, see what you can do. He felt very smug knowing Qinghua couldn't force him. If I refuse, you can't compel me. Qinghua only fell silent in thought. After a moment, Qinghua continued the conversation. You have no idea of the talent you possess. Then he turned and posed a hypothetical. If you saw a child about to fall into a well, would you just stand by and watch? Huiyang, scowling, wanted to confirm. What are you implying? Qinghua shot him an annoyed, icy look. Then he informed Huiyang of his rule. I mean, you may not leave Wudang without my permission. Qinggua's words made him tremble with anger. After all, you joined Wudang thanks to your father's donation. Isn't that right? So your parents will have no problem. Moreover, if I personally train you, they'll likely be even more delighted. Unable to hold back, Huiyang shouted, determined to set things straight. Why are you so intent on keeping me here? He presented every argument to persuade Qinghua. I'm just the son of an ordinary peasant. In his anger, Huiyang lost control and yelled continuously. Wudang doesn't need someone like me, so why force me to stay? After letting him vent, Qinghua finally answered, why? He lifted the corners of his mouth into a confident smile. Qinghua casually gave a whimsical reason, simply because I want you to stay. Time passed, sunlight spreading everywhere. The next day, after my grand escape plan failed miserably, Huiyang was astonished to find himself in this absurd situation. I had ultimately become a temporary true disciple of Wudang. Temporary, Qinghua, still calm, gently explained. If you remain merely a secular disciple, it's hard to supervise you. He smiled brightly and continued on Huiyang's matter. Actually, I intended to accept you as a true disciple from the start, but the chief didn't trust you and didn't approve. Huiyang inwardly agreed. Distrust was understandable. Qinghua furrowed his brow, encouraging Huiyang with vigor. But if you rely on your own effort, you can absolutely become official. He was endlessly optimistic, always steering toward the future. Trust your talent and devote yourself to training. Unlike Qinghua, Huiyang sank into gloom. The problem is, to buy that talent, I have to leave Wudang. Huiyang grew deeply conflicted. Maybe I should tell him everything about that covering token and explain I can only become powerful if I get some money. He trudged after Qinghua, unable to stop thinking. Wouldn't that be better than wasting time on futile practice? Suddenly, a very feasible idea popped into Huiyang's head. If I had money, I could buy the talent and then run away again. He immediately wanted to confirm his guess and called to Qinghua, Master. Huiyang, without embarrassment, asked to borrow money. Do you have some coin, sir? Qinghua frowned, unable to understand his pupil. This is the first time anyone has asked me that in my life. Caught by that look, he hurried to explain. Please don't look at me like that. I only want to exchange the check you just gave for cash. He still couldn't believe it and asked skeptically, what use is silver or money up on this mountain? Huiyang quickly fumbled a reply, hiding his plan. It's just that I happen to like money. In the end, Qinghua accepted his request. All right, I'll exchange it for you. Wait a moment. 75 coins. Huiyang was bewildered that Qinghua had anticipated it. Why did you come to the scripture pavilion? Did you know I'd come to borrow money? But in fact, Qinghua wasn't just passing by. You were ordered here for punishment duty, weren't you? He clutched the jingling purse of silver tightly, not rushing to hand it over. In that case, Qinghua, very cautious, set a condition. I'll hold this money until you complete your task. Huiyang couldn't bear it and shouted for fairness. What? That's my money. But Qinghua refused to yield and offered all sorts of reasons. Anyone listening might think I'm stealing it. I'm merely keeping it safe for you, he continued. Huiyang persisted in arguing. That's unreasonable. Money now is more valuable than in the future. Out of options, Qinghua pulled a sly card. So you mean you'll charge me interest? Hearing that, Huiyang had to give in. I don't need that, just please return my money. As he tucked the coins into his pouch, he justified his action. Of course I want to give it back to you. Qinghua leaned in and exposed his scheme. But I'm afraid if I hand it over now, you'll try to run away again. Then he turned and left without mercy. When you finish the task, I'll return it in full. Don't worry. Huiyang still didn't give up and tried to press further, but a voice suddenly cut across their conversation. Why the racket? Cheng Su came over wearily to Qinghua, grumbling, You're making it hard for me to sleep. He then greeted warmly, He has arrived. Qinghua then introduced the person to Huiyang, senior brother Cheng Su. He clasped his hands and bowed according to etiquette. Here he should be addressed as master, right? Cheng Su was annoyed by the ceremony and replied it was just a punitive post, no need for excessive formality. Cheng Su then assessed Huiyang's disposition. So this is the temporary disciple, his temperament isn't bad. Huiyang paid little attention, sulking about his purse. My money, Chenghua even spoke well of his pupil, after all, the kid does have talent. Finally Chenghua quietly departed, handing everything over to Cheng Su. I entrust him to you, senior brother. Cheng Su, I entrust him to you, he repeated. Huiyang could only exhale and reluctantly accept the favor. When everything was settled, Huiyang at last asked, so what exactly must I do? Doubt rose in his mind. Could those two have conspired together from the start? Huiyang knew he had no choice but to accept everything. I don't have many options left, I might as well go with the flow. Cheng Su turned and ordered him, follow me. He bluntly showed no mercy. You don't look very nimble, so I'll be frank. Your labor duty runs from the Mao hour to the Yu hour. Cheng Su opened the door and assigned Huiyang his task. During that time, carry these covered crates to Samcheng Pavilion. He jumped in disbelief, wanting to confirm. To Samcheng Pavilion. Huiyang's pained scream echoed through the air. It's all the way up on the mountain peak. Immediately he protested back at Cheng Su. I haven't even learned lightness skill, that will only slow things down further. Huiyang's expression darkened in astonishment at what was happening. Besides, he couldn't believe he was supposed to carry so many items. This many. Huiyang collapsed to the floor like a child throwing a tantrum. I can't do it, I can't. I'll surely slip and die along the way. Cheng Su, impatient, replied seriously, if so, I'll have to expel you for negligence. He frowned, his tone unmellowed. Even as a temporary disciple, the true disciple title still stands. Cheng Su's words made Huiyang even more uneasy. Remember, if you're expelled, your danshan will be destroyed. He lightly touched his body and brooded. That doesn't just affect a martial artist. If the life meridian is ruined, one could be crippled for life. Cheng Su didn't forget to admonish Huiyang, do your best and report to me when you're done. He clenched his fists in anger, his body trembling in waves. That damned old man raising me to true disciple temporarily just for this purpose. Cornered, Huiyang could only prepare his things. Really, he packed everything carefully. Really. Huiyang began his mountain climbing hauling. He bit his teeth and endured the pain. Truly, the madmen of Wudang, this will not end like this, I swear. The morning sun gradually spread its light everywhere. Huiyang's struggling hand finally reached the mountain peak. He exerted himself to hoist his entire body up. After climbing up, Huiyang collapsed, panting. I'm really about to die. He sat up and watched the sunrise with an unusual calm. Yet the scenery here was breathtakingly beautiful. This climb was worth it for the view. From behind, the person in charge called out, are you the messenger? Huiyang replied cheerfully, yes, I have brought the scroll. The man tugged his head and scolded, why so late? Then he went inside to store things, not forgetting to relay, works piled like a mountain, get moving. Senior brother said no one may leave until all of this is delivered, don't forget. Hearing this, Huiyang's face remained fresh and unchanged. But inside he screamed with rage, Wudang bastards, I'll wipe you all out. Time passed and soon Cheng Su strolled out of the storage room. The next morning, he also noticed Chenghua approaching. Chenghua, upon opening his mouth, asked about Huiyang. How is Huiyang doing? Cheng Su grumbled in displeasure. You were the one who suggested the Samcheng Pavilion cliff. Why are you asking me? He was singled out like that yet remained unfazed and even laughed. Is there something wrong with that location? Faced with such brazenness, Cheng Su was helpless. You truly have a vicious streak, do you know that? Because the place Chenghua chose to test Huiyang was full of peril. The Samcheng Pavilion Cliff concentrates Wudang's supreme lightness secrets, the Azure Cloud Steps. Therefore, not everyone can pass this trial if they cannot comprehend the mysterious flow of it. If your footing isn't steady, with just a slight slip, you'll pay an exorbitant price. Even one ascent can be a torment that crushes the soul. Chenghua awkwardly defended himself. Though I suggested that cliff, it was you who made him climb it in the dead of night, senior brother. Then he quickly shifted the topic to Huiyang. No matter how much potential the youth has, climbing that peak by the pale moonlight is clearly impossible. What exactly is your aim? Do you intend to crush a genius's will? Cheng Su shook his head slightly and replied coldly, that matter is meaningless now. Chenghua went inside to take on the remainder of the deliveries. I'll handle the remaining loads, how many more? He waved his hand emotionlessly and checked himself. As soon as Chenghua stepped in, he noticed something unusual. He couldn't help calling to Cheng Su, Senior Cheng Su, something seems wrong. Summoned like that, Cheng Su gave in, closing his eyes and accepting everything. He approached Chenghua again and confirmed there was nothing amiss here. Inside they found Huiyang exhausted and half asleep. The youth had simply completed every single delivery. His face was speckled with dirt from the grueling climbs and loads, and he had finished everything in just one night. Jing-Su speculated about Hui-Young's method. That wasn't the workload of a single trip. He must have climbed that cliff at least 3 times. He was also astonished by this leap in skill. I've never heard of anyone mastering the Azure Cloud steps on the first day. While climbing with his bundle, a bamboo stick in Hui-Young's load nearly fell out, but he quickly noticed and caught it in time. Hui-Young even had to bite and hold the bamboo stick in his mouth. In that situation, he still continued to the high summit, earning Jing-Su's admiration. They say there's always a higher mountain. He was the living embodiment of that proverb. He folded his arms with slight regret and observed that had the youth joined Wuding 10 years earlier, he'd have become a pillar of the martial world. Suddenly, Qinghua called out to Jing-Su, senior brother. He paused for a moment and didn't rush to speak to his elder. Qinghua's look toward Jing-Su was cautious. Let's work even harder to temper him. A moment later, Hui-Young slowly opened his eyes. He stretched after a night of hard labor. Last night truly had been a brush with death. Hui-Young couldn't stop thinking about the hardships he'd endured. I survived that night thanks to nimble footwork. Without it, I'd now be a flat pancake at the bottom of the gorge. Suddenly, Jing-Su entered and taunted, already exhausted from a bit of hauling. Then he sternly scolded Hui-Young, if you're awake, don't lie around, get up at once. He held the blanket, wanting to return it to Jing-Su. Master, did you really wrap this fur coat around your disciple? I want to return it, but you're so disgusted you won't take it back. Do you expect me to give you something covered in my drool? Jing-Su then left the decision entirely to Hui-Young. Keep it, sell it, or burn it, it's up to you. Hearing that, he couldn't help protesting inwardly. Must a single word of thanks be so difficult? Fine, I'll keep the fur coat then. He stood aside and glanced at Hui-Young fumbling with his things. Just as he finished, he received another order from Jing-Su. Take the scrolls from the next room and follow me quickly. He was very serious, forcing Hui-Young to follow. There is one place we must go. So the two of them set off toward the place Jing-Su had requested. Hui-Young trailed after him, peering around at everything. He vaguely recognized the route. It was the path back to the Samjing Pavilion cliff. Must I deliver there again? While he was dazed, Jing-Su suddenly tossed a piece of cloth to Hui-Young. He caught it puzzled. A headscarf, what's this for? Jing-Su answered bluntly with no concealment. Blindfold yourself and then. He pointed to the cliff behind them and gave the order. Climb the Samjing Pavilion cliff once more. Upon hearing that, Hui-Young, without holding back, forcefully threw the cloth to the ground. He angrily demanded his due. Climbing the cliff at night is hard enough. Do you really think I can do it blindfolded? Hui-Young's heroic indignation snapped back at him. Do you not understand the difference between darkness and blindness? I won't follow such a crazy order, never. But Jing-Su said a single simple sentence that made him obey. Do you want me to smash your dantian and ruin your martial arts? In the end, Hui-Young had to face the cliff looming above. He grew increasingly anxious and worried. What am I to do? Hui-Young groped around while pondering. Is he asking me to seek death in the most bizarre way possible? He stepped forward while continuing to grumble. What kind of madman climbs a cliff with both eyes tightly shut? Hui-Young knew his abilities well and couldn't help being cautious. True, nimble footwork gave him an edge, but one misstep would. He imagined the worst outcome for himself. I'd be dead for sure. Hui-Young kept panting as his body remained tense. He looked up as if seeking confirmation of a miracle. Although blindfolded, it wasn't as if he could actually see. He felt a guiding path for himself. His eyes were still covered, but the path appeared distinct and clear before him. Hui-Young's eyes widened in astonishment. Can I really see? He couldn't believe the sight before him. Clearly his eyes were covered. Yet he could see the way ahead. Hui-Young froze for a moment, then quickly rallied his spirits to carry on. Hui-Young reached out to touch a guiding point of light. He was stunned to feel the cliff, seeming to compel him to climb. Hui-Young continued reaching for the next handhold. It wasn't that he was choosing the correct route, he slowly grew accustomed to this new assistance. In the moment he clung on, he simply followed the path step by step. A single path had appeared to guide him, a solitary route formed for a specific purpose. He had successfully climbed to the destination. It was guiding my steps. Hui-Young removed the blindfold and savored the cool breeze. Each step, together with his internal energy, flowed naturally in rhythm. He looked down over the vast mountains. A footwork technique that swapped steps was extremely efficient. Hui-Young was astonished, and since this was a supreme footwork skill, his dantian was heating up. He was silently elated and didn't notice Jing-Su standing nearby. This level was completely different from the martial arts I learned in my previous life. Back then, my inner power hardly stirred, let alone generated heat like this. Jing-Su threw the book straight at Hui-Young's head. Who gave you permission to remove the blindfold? Young complained in pain. Why would Senior throw something dangerous at me like that? But the moment he made out the title, he immediately calmed. This thing is. Jung-soo explained at once. It is the mind manual of the martial art you just reached the first level of. He gently lectured, you have only comprehended it with your body, so you are still at a rudimentary stage. After studying the secret text and understanding the principles, your understanding will change. Young stared at it dazedly. It was indeed a strange feeling. He couldn't help reminiscing. In my previous life, I only skimmed a few second-rate martial arts. And back then, I was innately dim-witted, so I couldn't master anything. A restless unease gripped Young. Yet now I am being taught the profound secret art of a great orthodox sect. He hugged the mind manual and grinned cunningly. Jung-soo continued, this is only a small part of it. He motivated Young. Once you formally become an inner disciple, you will have access to much deeper techniques. Jung-soo leaned close and teased, you still intend to flee Wudang? Young wavered. This actually doesn't seem so bad. Following him, he asked curiously, if I become an inner disciple, can I still work in the secular world? Jung-soo replied, even within the inner sect it depends on where you serve. If you join the scripture pavilion, you can operate in the mortal world. Young's eyes lit up. Then I could manage a merchant caravan or a courier post, right? He looked at him as if he were a fool. Do you really think that's feasible? Jung-soo did not dash his hopes. However, with approval from the sect leader, you could certainly become a protector somewhere outside the secular world. Young frowned, thinking it sounded a bit disappointing. He took the luggage while praising, well done. And he decisively turned his back to leave. I'll remember this for now. Since the deliveries are complete, I take my leave to rest. Jung-soo called Young back. Wait. Jung-soo blinked in surprise and asked, the duties are still there. Where do you intend to go? Young was stunned. What do you mean, Senior? My job was to deliver letters to the Samjing Pavilion. He declared emphatically that your duties were changed as of yesterday. Starting today, you will be responsible for all correspondence from the Scripture Pavilion. He clenched his teeth in anger. Why are martial artists always so arrogant? Do they really live in their own little world? Young could hardly contain himself. Just as my excitement at learning profound martial arts began, they trample on it like this. He demanded loudly, since when do you change agreements without even notifying the person involved? Young even used insults. Even bandits wouldn't behave this unreasonably. He had reached Jung-soo's limit. You braided hair lunatic Taoists. He immediately acted, silencing Young at once. He couldn't dodge or defend in time and took the blow. Young clutched his side in pain and dropped to his knees. Jung-soo taunted. Looks like you're eager to go to your grave early, aren't you? He gave a smile laced with murderous intent. How dare you defy a senior? Jung-soo snapped coldly. You think this is a refuge from the secular world where you secular disciples can swagger about? Fine, then go die. And thus the morning ended peacefully. The next day, rain lashed the main hall. Young had to clutch his head and run. He had nothing to shield himself from the rain. Young wrung his clothes dry and grumbled, good heavens. Then quickly changed into another set. Young frowned in annoyance. Where did this downpour come from? No idea. 2 months had passed since I practiced the azure cloud steps. It seems my body was hardened by all the running around for Wudang affairs, which is why I now have spare time. Even though I've finished all the scripture pavilion deliveries. I couldn't help but sigh. I once thought this impossible, yet somehow I managed it. Jung-soo warned me, your position was changed as of yesterday. Starting today, you are responsible for all correspondence from the scripture pavilion. Young muttered inwardly that at least he should have given me a proper explanation. And to match my promotion, the martial talent shop also shifted. The shop's level rose and the number of talents I could buy increased. The only downside was there were now too many things to read through at once. I happily examined the bamboo cards. As I grow stronger, will better talents unlock. The feeling was oddly enjoyable, like I'm nurturing something. Out of nowhere, Jung-soo appeared and gave Young a knock on the head. He pressed angrily, what the hell? When did you get here and why did you hit me? Jung-soo went straight to the point. Weren't you using the azure cloud steps on the way to the scripture pavilion? Jung-soo issued a strict demand. You've concentrated too much force on a few points. Work harder so next time you leave no footprints. Young was too angry to reply. Why didn't Senior just tell me to walk in the air then? Surprisingly, Master Jung-soo taught quite thoroughly. Then I realized his strikes were actually a form of pressure point tapping to stimulate the meridians. If I hadn't known, I might have risked fleeing even with the chance of having my danchin ruined. Suddenly, someone stepped between them, though I think he had reached the minimum basic level already. Junghwa said with a smile, now perhaps you can begin training at the Dao Pavilion. Young asked skeptically, so my work at the Scripture Pavilion is finally over? He replied with a mock laugh, of course not. You must still perform duties when you're not training. Qinghua offered a palm. When the rain stops, we'll go to the Dao Pavilion and I'll introduce you to my other disciples. He said wryly that if you become an official inner disciple, they will be your senior brothers. He accepted the new opportunity blankly. I understand. Atriang followed closely behind Qinghua, surprised. Finally, I'll learn martial arts properly. Honestly, I felt pretty disheartened about the current situation. You brought me here as a provisional inner disciple. That must be Qinghua. But all I do at the scripture pavilion is deliver letters. Of course, learning footwork is good, but it isn't as if Master Qinghua has done anything special for me. Whenever I asked why he brought me here, his answer was always the same. Qinghua smiled and replied, everything has its time. Atriang calmly told himself it was ridiculous to hear the master say that, but it seemed the time had finally come. He brimmed with hope. I wonder what my senior brothers will be like, hopefully at least as approachable as Jian Asu. But then Atriang's mood immediately hit rock bottom. Qinghua kept smiling as always. He stared blankly at the familiar faces. Have I been expecting too much? The three arrogant children immediately demanded of Atriang, the whistle is mine is broken, fix it, mine too, hurry up. He stood there dumbfounded, wondering, are these kids really my senior brothers? The trio of youthful faces casually made requests. That's a reed flute, mine's broken, fix it for me, mine too. Come on, hurry up. Atriang was stunned. Are these kids my senior brothers? He trembled as he confirmed, you want me to call these children my senior brothers? Qinghua put on an indifferent expression. Of course. Atriang could not accept it. Ridiculous, I'm already of adult age here. He tried to reason, you expect me to call a child 10 years younger than me my senior brother? Qinghua didn't bother to care. Doesn't this happen often in the martial world? Atriang thought irritably that even so, this was excessive. He forced a polite smile. After all, I'm still only a registered disciple for now. I don't need to act like an official inner disciple yet. He seemed unaware of the problem. You don't have to call them senior brothers for now. You'll meet plenty more. Take your time to adapt. Qinghua decisively ignored Atriang. Now introduce yourself. I have matters to attend to. I take my leave. He panicked and called after him, wait a moment. Atriang stood there in a daze watching him go. The proud Myeong-sung asked, so you're the one about to become my junior brother? He scrutinized Atriang with probing eyes. Myeong-sung tossed his chin and arrogantly ordered, answer me quickly. He could only smile awkwardly. I suppose so. Are you not satisfied with that answer? Suppose so. Atriang glanced discreetly and saw Myeong-jeong's companions not daring to utter a word. Am I perhaps your great senior brother? Myeong-sung adopted a lecturing tone. Don't use that tone before a Taoist. What do those eyes mean? Are you displeased? How dare you show that face to someone of higher rank? Kids these days are really, he thought to himself, exasperated at the endless nagging. Atriang understood. I'd wondered how those arrogant types were raised. Now I know. He straightened and demanded, my sect name is Myeong-sung. Remember it well. He judged inwardly that the boy was a promising martial talent, but excessively proud. Myeong-sung stepped closer to apply pressure. After all, that brat seemed intent on disturbing Wuding's order. He loudly accused, isn't it because of you and your toys that the disciples can't concentrate? Training isn't enough and you go playing with these things. Atriang widened his eyes in surprise. He spoke as he produced a reed flute. One wonders what Wuding's future will become. Myeong-sung's eyes immediately lit up. Atriang realized at once, was he implying the reed flute was a toy? If he wanted one, he only had to ask. He took a deep breath. Was Myeong-sung bullying the children out of jealousy over flutes? Should I liven the atmosphere a bit? Atriang played a melodious tune on the flute. The sound carried far and wide. The flute's lilting notes were truly soothing. The inner disciples all enthusiastically applauded. Atriang began to put on a show. In my little brother's opinion, I think it's important for a senior brother to set a good example. He produced another flute. If senior only uses a reed flute during rest, won't the other disciples follow suit? Atriang respectfully offered the gift. I present this to you, senior. Please keep the younger disciples in line. Myeong-sung did not refuse, trying to hide his delight. Others watching might think I'm bullying juniors over this trinket. However, to refuse your sincerity would be rude, so I'll accept it for now. The kids have noticed too, perhaps that's why he's been a bit touchy lately. Someone stormed over, eyes blazing with provocation. I came because I heard a mediocre tune. What a pathetic scene. Three burly men barged in aggressively. Myeong-sung immediately frowned. What are you doing here? You don't seem to like them, Myeong-han. Atriang reviewed the people he'd met. Myeong-jeong, Myeong-sung, Myeong-han. those names really get confusing after a while. They sneered mockingly, have some self-respect. Aren't you ashamed in front of the disciples, Myung-sung? He couldn't help but wonder, more importantly, is that guy really our age? His worldly air is on another level. Myung-han eagerly turned his attention to Hwayung. So you're the merchant peddling reed flutes everywhere here. He snarled a threat, selling that junk in Wudang. Do you want your wrists chopped off? Hwayung thought inwardly. Does his murderous aura kill people by looks alone? Myung-jeong stepped in front of Hwayung. Senior, I'll properly teach this junior disciple a lesson. Myung-han glared threateningly. A merchant like that as our junior disciple? The boy went pale. Actually, he's still only a registered disciple. He scoffed. Registered? Then I guess you must be that fellow, huh? Myung-han jeered loudly. I've heard the master mention you. You're a secular disciple trying to become an inner disciple. Don't you think you're too old for these ridiculous matters? He took a step forward. Or Myung-han jabbed a finger right at his face. Is your mind slower than others your age? A wooden sword suddenly came down to stop him. Myung-sung had stepped into the ridiculous quarrel. He warned coldly, enough, Hwayung is my direct junior brother. Myung-han scowled with disgust. Are you implying you want to spar with me? They spoke with such annoyance. Are you scared now? Look who's talking. Hwayung had no idea what on earth he was doing here. Myung-jeong whispered that those senior brothers were disciples of Chung-soo. He sat down level with the boy. I see. Myung-jeong explained in detail. Chung-soo and Chung-gwa don't get along, so their disciples often clash like this. Hwayung thought inwardly. They've already treated me like family. How touching. Myung-han looked about to snap. Get out of the way. Myung-sung, I must punish this secular fellow on behalf of the sect for disrupting Wudang's discipline. Myung-sung firmly retorted, he's going to be my junior brother. If he needs disciplining, I'll do it myself. He grabbed the wooden sword from his junior. Am I not also this fellow senior? Who is he to interrupt my little lesson? His gaze turned cold as he stared straight at Myung-han. If you're that curious, I'll use my sword to personally show you, he said with a sly smile. Myung-han surged forward in a blaze. Exactly what I've been waiting for. Myung-jeong excitedly acted as commentator. The head-to-head record between Myung-sung and Myung-han stands at 108 wins to 93 losses out of 201 bouts. He squared his stance and waited. By calculation, Myung-sung should win this time as well. Hwayung sat in a corner thinking even sworn enemies don't fight like that. He watched every movement closely. Could it be that I've learned a bit of martial art? Hwayung was rather surprised. Unlike in his past life, now he could see the flow of the fight clearly. He realized the key was that both of their footwork systems were built on the Azure Cloud steps. Hwayung followed the bout closely, allowing him to predict the stepping patterns and even the outcome of the match. At that moment, Myung-sung sent Myung-han flying. There was no longer any doubt about the result. He fell flat on his back. Myung-han tried to struggle to his feet, but Myung-sung gave him no chance to recover. Myung-sung arrogantly ordered, don't play around, clear off and get out of my sight. Hwayung had foreseen Myung-sung's victory. Myung-sung loftily commanded, stop causing trouble, be gone from my sight. Just then someone interjected, Senior, you're being a bit harsh acting like that. He frowned warily. Myung-yoon sneered slyly, would you mind if I teach the junior a thing or two? Myung-sung swung the wooden sword hard, producing a gust of force. He adjusted his breathing. Myung-sung took a ready stance. Very well. Hwayung propped his chin and watched from the corner. These guys really live fiercely for their age. He continued to focus. Surely the senior must be near exhaustion after fighting Myung-han. Where does he find that strength? Hwayung had spotted the issue. However, Myung-yoon found an opening and knocked the sword from his hand. It seemed the senior's fighting spirit ended right there. He flashed a smug smile and pointed the sword tip at Myung-sung. Myung-yoon arrogantly declared, I win. Just in time someone speaks up. Wait a moment. This time it's Myung-jeong. I'd like to request the next bout. He challenged loudly, you don't plan to run after beating the senior, are you exhausted? He truly couldn't refuse. Stop the nonsense and jump in. Another fierce battle broke out. Hwayung persisted in being invisible. This is what people call a contest of the top ranks. He easily predicted the situation. Myung-jeong could likely handle Myung-yoon, but the problem lay with the remaining juniors. Hwayung was not surprised. Aside from Myung-sung and Myung-jeong, the rest on our side were basically just kids. He understood the issue well. The kids may have a physical edge, but at that age, a single year of experience can be an absolute gulp. Hwayung watched each person fall casually. Unless we have a master who can turn the tide, this great battle's outcome is set. His expression didn't change at all. Finally, Myung-han aimed at Hwayung. He broke into a triumphant smile. You understand too, it will be our defeat. Myung-han must have seen it. Do you mind if I teach this secular disciple a lesson? Hyung froze and thought inwardly. Of course, Myung-sung and Myung-jeong got into this trouble trying to protect me, didn't they? He looked at the boys trying to hold back tears. They'd given their all for him. I'd feel terrible abandoning things like this. Hyung decided resolutely, please teach me a few moves then. What could Myung-han possibly expect? He stood up straight and looked down at him. Hyung put on an aggressive, threatening face. Well then, are you so scared you're losing your mind? He thought maybe I should show off my muscles a bit. Myung-han snapped angrily, kneel. I'll let this slide as the foolish act of a secular disciple. Hyung flatly refused, talking back. He was furious to the point of madness. So you refuse the path of survival and choose punishment yourself. I don't understand any of this. Punishment? Hyung giggled in Myung-han's face. At this age, how can you even say such things? Besides, looking at your face, not even an innkeeper would take you for a child. He launched a decisive strike. That brat. Myung-han lunged without thinking, but all his blows hit empty air. Hyung grinned inwardly. If you think I started this fight unprepared, you're very wrong. Hyung made excellent use of what he'd learned. I saw through everything after watching their bout. Their martial skill may be higher than mine, but my ability to read combat seemed far superior. He guessed it was because he'd experienced a wider variety of harsher battles than they had for a long time. Hyung easily put pressure on him. Moreover, all their techniques were based on the Azure Cloud Steps. He launched a powerful counterattack, and I have a solid grasp of the Azure Cloud Steps. I can see through every move of yours. Myung-han went wide-eyed with pain, but then he stood there dazed, feeling no pain at all. Myung-han stared dumbly at his belly. There wasn't a single wound. At the same time, Hyung was clutching himself and trembling. His face flushed until tears fell. I miscalculated. He continued to press a relentless assault. Hyung couldn't figure out why, but my understanding of footwork was definitely superior. However, he kept dodging smoothly, yet that alone wasn't enough. Hyung analyzed cautiously. These kids have trained internal and external skill for years. Compared to them, I'm basically ordinary. Fortunately, I can still manage to evade his attacks. He could foresee the outcome, but even exhausted, his basic stamina far exceeded mine. If this continued and I took a fatal blow, I'd surely die. Hyung had a plan, and so he narrowed his eyes and waited for the moment. Myung-han was sweating with tension. They both lunged at once. Let's make one last gamble. A fist came within inches of Hyung's face. He dodged in time, suffering only a minor cut to his chin. Myung-han froze. I thought we were going to trade moves with each other. Even though Myung-han had knocked Hyung away, he couldn't understand it. Why would you take such a risky dodge? He fell backward as if knocked unconscious. Everyone held their breath waiting, each eye tracking every movement. Hyung landed face first, gouging a sizable hole in the stone floor. Time passed in silence. He showed no sign of movement. Myung-han muttered in disbelief. I didn't even touch him. Just then, a voice cut across the fight. What do you think you're doing? Jingsu roared angrily. I asked what you lot are doing, huh? Myung-han looked flustered, not knowing how to answer. The thing is. Suddenly a hand gently patted his head to soothe him. Myung-han immediately looked up. Master. Jingyu shot an appraising glance at the others. I heard a ruckus and hurried over to see what was going on. In front of him was Hyung, just pulled up by Chenghua. He suddenly sneezed blood from his nose, making Chenghua next to him startle. Jingyu cleared his throat to smooth things over. It seemed the kids had a little dispute. Chenghua would not accept that and slapped Hyung a few times. You call that a dispute? He turned coldly to question them. A martial artist hit someone who's never learned martial arts and you call that a dispute? Hyung just stared blankly at his bleeding nose. Chenghua, now furious, demanded in a strained voice, apologize to Hyung at once. Chenghua's words made the atmosphere tenser than ever. Immediately, Hyung couldn't help but comment, the relationship between Chengyu and Chenghua is worse than I thought. It's true I never learned martial arts from Chenghua, because I discovered the Azure Cloud Steps myself on the cliff, but I never expected him to say such things. Is he trying to pressure Chengsu that much? The other side clearly realized they were at a loss. Chengyu pressed gently on Myung-han's back to urge him. Myung-han, apologize, he only knows how to obey. Yes. Though veins bulging with anger, he still forced himself to lower his head and spit out each word. I apologize. Chengyu said no more and turned to leave. let's go. But can everything be settled with a single apology? The two disciples who had been pulled back, wait a moment. They turned and saw the one who'd stopped them was Hui. He blinked and pointed at his face. Aren't you going to ask the victim's opinion? Cheng-Yu's face darkened. You've received an apology. What more do you want? Hui scratched his head and grinned. I'm not asking for anything grand. I just want a little pocket money to cover the medicinal expenses. Cheng Guo and Cheng Su couldn't help chuckling. Money? They've really picked the wrong person to mess with Hui. Here Hui is bargaining, right? Don't shortchange him a single coin, not even a scrap. 2 taels of silver should be enough, right? Do you think that's too much? Hui inwardly knew of course it was too much. 1 tael is a very large sum, equivalent to 1,000 coins. Besides, this is extortion via self-inflicted injury, so it's certainly excessive. But Hui feigned naivety. Would a senior Wudang master haggle over medical expenses? I don't mind, but what would others think if they knew? Faced with this, Cheng-Yu and Myung-Han have only 2 choices, pay up or be called stingy. Your call. Cheng-Yu slipped his hand into his robe and tossed exactly 2 taels of silver into Hui's hand. He cheerfully accepted, confirming the payment. Cheng-Yu, holding back his anger, asked, "What's your name?" Hui sniffed the warm coins in his palm and answered casually, "Me, I'm Mook Hui." Mook Hui. He turned to leave, but not without a warning. I'll remember that name. After they left, Hui gleefully stuffed the silver into his pouch. Cheng Guo was silent for a moment, then offered, "I'll keep those 2 taels for you." Hui immediately clutched the money. What is this about? He snapped angrily. This money is earned by my own hands. No shady business. Cheng Guo was helpless. After all, your acting skills are masterful. I've never seen anyone tumble through the air and then smash into the ground like that. Hui put the pouch away, curious. How did you know? He told him straight, I was watching from when Myung-Sung and Myung-Han began fighting. This puzzled Hui more, so you were watching from the start. I was nearly badly hurt. Why didn't you step in to stop them? Didn't I reveal myself when it was your turn to fight? He suddenly grew serious and pointed out, more importantly, aren't you ashamed? You couldn't even land a hit on a child much younger than you. Hui felt as if water had been poured on a lotus leaf. No, I feel no shame at all. I never learned martial arts, so isn't that obvious? How could I compare to fighters who spent half their lives hunting the way of martial arts? Right, I'm not a martial artist. Cheng Guo raised his hand. I'm not your master, but I'm still a senior, so I'll start by teaching you proper etiquette. Hui naively protested that if it's martial etiquette, he really doesn't. Before he could finish, his gaze stopped. A loud noise rang out in the courtyard. Cheng Guo rubbed his hands, both warming up and instructing. The martial world has rules and a strict hierarchy. Your inability to suddenly stop being a martial practitioner is part of that rule. Now I'll teach you some etiquette, so don't tense up. If you do, you'll get hurt, understand? Hui bore a swollen lump on his head, but still sneaked a look up. Wait just a moment. Only to hear cries of alarm. From that day on, training with Cheng Guo became part of my daily routine. The training was nothing special. I had to condition my body under Cheng Guo's supervision. And when that was done, he would beat me half to death. He called it stimulating the meridians, but the intensity couldn't compare to senior Sagang Haiyan. Cheng Guo even sighed with relief. What a refreshment. After relaxing, he hummed as he left, leaving Hui a heap on the yard. The effect of Cheng Su's meridian stimulation would fade after 1 watch, but with Cheng Guo, the pain still smoldered even after half a day. I've endured out of pride for days, but now I've reached my limit. I need to use the shop immediately. Hui thought miserably. I wanted to save up as much as possible to buy all the high-tier talents at once, but I can't take another punch from Cheng Guo. He quickly pulled out an item. Thanks to repeated training, I had unlocked many talents. And best of all, I had the 2 taels of silver just extorted from Cheng-Yu. With that money, I could buy a talent that would actually be useful to me right now. Suddenly, Hui's eyes lit up. The 2 taels of silver slowly vanished, replaced by a flood of energy coursing through his body and a purchase complete notification. Cheng Guo stood watching with a rather satisfied look. He asked Hui whether all his hard training had paid off, while the boy was still struggling with the heavy dumbbell. Sweating profusely, Hui kept trying to lift the weight up and down. He answered that not at all. For him, each day felt like a torment. Cheng Guo sighed and said it was a pity, since he had thought the boy would be happy to see himself improve. He clenched his fist and said then they'd start the usual exercise. Cheng Guo warned Hui not to brace himself, or the punch would hurt twice as much. No sooner had he finished than he threw an extremely strong punch straight into Hui's chest, sending the dumbbell flying. Hui's eyes widened as he took a blow that made stars explode behind his eyes. He grit his teeth and endured, sweat streaming down his face. Hui was surprised he could still stand. It turned out the level 8 talent, tough physique he bought for 2 silver really worked. It appeared like a soul armor enveloping his body. Seeing a level 8 talent already this good, Young couldn't help but smile inwardly with pride. Xinghua looked at him with some suspicion, while Young thought to himself that there was no need to buy high-grade talents. Collecting a bunch of these low-tier ones would do. He fancied that just with level 8 and level 9 talents, he'd be enough to become the strongest in the world. Xinghua wondered why Young had suddenly become so hard to knock down, but he pushed that aside and started flailing his arms and legs to prepare for the next round. He grinned maliciously and said that since the boy could now take it, he'd punch a bit harder. A punch charged with greenish force was aimed straight at Young's face. A loud, cracking explosion rang out in the training yard. Young silently learned the lesson that cheap things have their reasons. At that moment, Myung-jeong secretly peeked his head out from behind the wall to observe. Young lay flattened on the floor, smoke rising. Myung-jeong worriedly asked if he was okay, and he croaked back that he was not okay at all. The kid advised that if it hurt too much, he should just shout. Sometimes the master would go easy. But Young knew full well the old man would never do that to him. Myung-jeong offered to ask on his behalf, but Young waved him off, fearing it would only make things worse. Seeing Young hobble back toward the sect's living quarters, the kid waved goodbye. Young watched him go with a rather exasperated look. He thought to himself that the kid really meant well for his senior, but the way he did it only made things more awkward. Young trudged in, only wanting to leave the Wudang sect as soon as possible to be free of this burden. Jung-soo coldly announced there was nothing for him to do today and told him to go home. Young still begged that he was ready to do anything, but the official snapped not to waste time there and to go train. Young could only stand silently and watch. He even knelt down and clutched the man's leg, begging that if he had to keep training he'd surely die. The man angrily told him to stop that pitiful act. Just then someone opened the door and came in to report a matter for discussion. The messenger reported that a market had opened in Yicheng and the merchant guilds from Shanxi requested Wudang escort duty. Young remained sprawled on the floor listening. The official asked about the scale. The messenger reported about 50 merchant guilds participating. Hearing the number 50, Young jolted, realizing this was a very large market. He added that Shanxi merchants were famously wealthy, so it was understandable they'd hire Wudang even at a high price. The official nodded that 10 people would be enough, then asked how much they were paying. The messenger quoted 10 taels of silver per person. The official muttered that indeed the rich are something else, but that was good for the sect. Young remained lying on the ground, pondering something. Young suddenly sprang up like a spring and shouted that hearing Wudang fighters for the paltry price of 10 taels per group was robbery. The messenger continued with the salt price, about 10 taels for 30 sacks, and they promised a discount for purchases over 500 sacks. On hearing that, Young couldn't hold back and burst in, "Are you all crazy?" The official flew into a rage, grabbed Young by the collar and barked whether he wanted to start trouble. Young quickly waved his hands to apologize for the slip, but still insisted the price was absurd. The official glared so fiercely the boy turned red and asked what did he know when he hadn't even been born then. Young suddenly remembered, right, he's reborn and already knew the future. Young found it odd because the salt price he recalled was only half of this. It should be 60 sacks for 10 taels. He told himself if he'd missed anything, it could only be that a major change was about to occur. Exactly, the salt management system hadn't changed at this point in time. Originally, to sell salt legally you needed a permit, and those permits weren't handed out willy-nilly. They were only issued at the northern border. Because goods were hard to transport to the border region, this was the court's way of encouraging merchants to make the trip there. As a result, the border area became the salt distribution hub. Merchants would buy salt there and retail it across the country. That system was called Gijung, but in his memory, it would soon be abolished and replaced by a new policy. That new system was the Geolsik system, about to be introduced. Under the new system, salt would be centralized at inland agencies and sold under the direct management of the central government. In his previous life, Young had never heard the exact reason why the old system was abruptly abolished. He guessed it was likely because salt merchants evaded so many taxes that the court was just waiting for an excuse to strip them of power and profit. In any case, the most important outcome was that salt would become much easier to obtain, causing prices to collapse nationwide. That's why salt prices later dropped to less than half of the current level. Young hesitated, thinking over how he should intervene in this matter appropriately. The Geolsik system would be implemented around the time he turned 20. If Wuding bought salt now, they'd suffer heavy losses once market prices hit rock bottom. Seeing the Shanxi merchants suddenly cut prices to dump stock, Hui was certain they'd obtained secret court information. He clenched his fist, unable to watch the sect be fooled. Jingsu maintained a cold expression and showed no sign of believing him. Hui hurried forward to stop him, advising not to buy salt in haste. He couldn't stand by and watch people fall into the merchant's trap. The official asked in return how much he actually knew about the matter, since Shanxi merchants rarely offered such discounts. Hui calmly replied that if those who never discount suddenly slash prices, isn't there bound to be some shady reason? The official thought he was just anxious and paranoid. Hui murmured that there is no harmless merchant, what they chase is profit, whatever the means. He raised a finger to emphasize that when merchants cut their prices, there is always a hidden motive behind the action. The official folded his arms over his chest and asked sternly whether the boy would dare take responsibility for those claims. Hui grinned smugly and confidently declared that he could absolutely take responsibility. He began to daydream that once the Jialsik system went into effect, people would look at him with admiration and start calling him Hui the Radiant. He remained immersed in the illusion of becoming the sect's financial savior. But the official doused him with a cold bucket of reality by ordering him to prove those claims before the sect master. On hearing that, Hui froze for a few seconds, sweat breaking out as the matter went farther than he'd imagined. His eyes showed clear panic as he realized he was about to face the head of the sect. He was led into a vast, solemn room where a figure sat silently above them. It was Qingyuai, Wudeng's sect master and one of the 5 great sword masters of the world, famed as the Taiji Sword Emperor.